Hello, this is assignment 9, part 1. In this assignment, we are going to do a little bit of an analysis of candidate spending in the 2016 presidential election. I'm going to look at some different maps, different charts, different chart types, and see if we can come up with a little bit of information that would give us some idea of how candidates spent money and what happened during that spending. So this first chart that we're looking at here is the amount spent by each candidate. So as you can see here, some of these smaller ones are, Gary Johnson, Henry Webb, people that, aren't as big names. Obviously, the bigger the names get over here, the more the spending increases, the more money they're going to have for their campaign and the ability to spend more. So as I was looking at this, I thought the interesting thing, the two biggest spenders for the presidency were two Democrats, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. And each of them spent over. Hillary Clinton was 155 million and Bernie Sanders was 165 million. Trying to be as neutral as possible, I was trying to evaluate this and looking at why the Republican candidates didn't spend. Most of them didn't spend almost half as much. Granted, these charts only went through a certain month, right? So they didn't cover the whole thing, but it was interesting even up to this point why their spending was so much higher. As you can tell, Donald Trump, who won the presidency, had only spent up to this point 49, almost 50 million. And he ended up winning the presidency. So, as opposed to his running mate in the Democratic Party, who had spent 3 times as much as him to this point. So I thought that was really interesting. Kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit. Ben Carson spent more. Obviously, he dropped out earlier. The only other person to spend more than Donald Trump would be Ted Cruz or Ben Carson at 70 and 60 million, respectively. So very interesting as you look through here and how much people spend. Even, even Gary Johnson, who I never, I don't remember much about from that election, or Jill Stein. They both spent into the 200,000s. And didn't make much of a mark there. This Scott Walker, $10 million. I don't remember much about him either. So it could just be my political knowledge, but I don't remember much. So spending by state for each candidate, I thought this was really interesting map as we looked at it. So Virginia, the most money was spent in Virginia was 66 million by Bernie Sanders. So obviously, as you can see here, Virginia and DC, all the candidates really thought these were important states to spend money in. New York was another important one. And then you get down here into, like South Dakota, not much. Not much spending by state. So Virginia, we've got 66 million for Bernie Sanders. We've got 22 million for Ted Cruz. Even Hillary Clinton didn't spend much in Virginia, but Bernie Sanders did. Bernie Sanders spent 39 million in DC. Hillary Clinton spent 62 million in DC. So it's just interesting to look at how they were spending. New York, Hillary Clinton is the most. And some of this might have to do with where these people are most familiar, where they think the biggest impact would be based on their spending. Maybe Bernie Sanders thought he could make a bigger impact here than he did in New York, because obviously his spending in New York was relatively low to Virginia. So, and just goes around from there, but similar patterns, in Florida, which, it could be viewed as what's a Democratic and Republican state, and do they feel that they have a good chance to win that state? So Bernie Sanders spent, in Texas, which is a Republican state, spent almost 3 million, whereas Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush, man, they feel a little more at home there, so they spend a little bit more money there. And then we try and see if Hillary Clinton in Texas, she, did a little bit of campaigning in Texas, but not as much because it's a Republican state. So if you look at what we're going to see here is state spending by candidate. So in Virginia total, Bernie Sanders spent 66 million. Ted Cruz, 22 million. So some similar themes from the last one, just presented in a little bit different way, and help us kind of see what's going on with the data there. This is a really interesting one, right? So spending by top 30 items. So what are these candidates spending money on? This is a really useful and helpful chart as we looked at it. Media. So look right here. Marco Rubio is third, and then it looks like John Kasich was in fourth here, and some other ones that were really, really small here. But so media buys. So they're buying commercials, they're buying time. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders was obviously front of mind, and then Marco Rubio. Payroll. Hillary Clinton had 25 million in payroll. Bernie Sanders had 10 million in payroll. Jeb Bush had 4 million. So these are all the people they're paying to help them with their candidacy. So interesting, you know, Donald Trump won. His payroll was 1 million as opposed to Hillary Clinton, who was 24 million. Over here, placed media. Again, we have media, digital consulting and ad buys. And then travel. Travel was an interesting one. As you look at Hillary Clinton spent 13 million on travel, where Bernie Sanders only spent almost 4. You look at where is so I don't see even, see if we can find him over here. Yeah, so I can't even find Clinton, or I'm sorry, Trump's travel expenses on here. So who knows how those are written off. You look at campaign, online advertising, rent for space that they need, print items. You know, you scroll through here, you print postage, fundraising phone calls, insurance, media production, digital advertising, polling, air travel, all those types of things. So everybody's got some interesting things, but you can see the big spenders here were Clinton and Sanders. So I thought that was interesting. Spending by city. So cities, these were somewhat of a reflection of the states, because again, in DC, Hillary and Bernie were ahead. In Virginia, Bernie Sanders was ahead. And actually, Marco Rubio spent a good bit in Alexandria. So again, just spending by city. Again, New York, Arlington, Virginia there for Trump, Roseland, Akron, and a lot of these again are where people are from. They feel like they can garner a lot of support. Ted Cruz there in Memphis. So just an interesting layout of how people chose to spend money. What I want to look at on this next one is just the year and month and how finances were spent for total candidates. So if you look at the day, so this is the day of the month here on this axis, and then the year is up here on top. Excuse me. So here we have, you know, December 2014, January 2015, February 2015. So it just goes like that. So in the beginning, you can see there was less money spent. And as we trend towards the election, more money is spent, and those were obviously error columns there, so we'll stop right here. But more money was spent, obviously, you know, in 2016 than it was in 2014, because campaigns are ramping up. So you know, in what is this, January of 2016, everybody wanted to make a big push because they knew the election was going to be in November. So on the 4th day of January, there was $20 million spent on that one day. And in these next 3 months, we can't even see it. So that's all we have for now. But some interesting charts for part 1. Thanks for watching.